All right. So now that you've started planning for your retirement, you're really getting into the nuts and bolts of this thing. Here's a few things that you want to take a look at and you want to try to avoid because they can really be pitfalls. And the number one thing I would say is avoid relocating on a whim. Don't just think, wow, I live up north and it'd be great to move to, South Texas down in the Austin area. That would just be great. It'd be nice and I'd really enjoy that. Or, let's go where it's really warm. Let's go down to Alabama or Louisiana or Florida or something like that. Well, let me tell you something about those. When you've lived up north most of your life, you haven't experienced the heat that they get in the down south. And when you get down south and you get the heat and the humidity, it's pretty bad. Everybody knows how hot it is in Arizona, and they say, well, it's a dry heat, it's not so bad. Well, when it's 120 degrees, I don't care whether it's a dry heat or a humid heat, it's hot. It's really hot. The other thing about moving down south that you may not realize is they've got a lot of bugs, a lot of bugs. And I know up north in the summertime, you get that problem too, but you're not talking bugs, big bugs. So bugs, snakes, things like that. If that's not your cup of tea, you may want to think about just doing some snowbirding. And snowbirding can be a really cool thing to do. It's more of what my wife and I do. We take off during the winter time. We don't take off for months at a time because we don't want to be gone from our kids and our grandkids that long. But we do like to take off, go snowbirding for a few weeks, come back, and do that a couple times in the winter because our winters generally don't last that long. Pretty much from mid-December through, mid-March. And there's still a lot of days in there that I can go golfing. We don't get a lot of snow, so I can still golf a lot during the winter time. But anyway, when you talk about relocating on a whim, be careful of that because you don't know how much it's actually going to cost you. You got to take a look at the community. You got to take a look at the states and the state taxes and all those different types of things that could affect the decision for you to go ahead and relocate. And the other thing that could be a problem is simply community culture. Yeah, I know, my wife and I in our early years, we moved around the United States a lot. I did a lot of construction. We lived in the Northeast, we lived in California, we lived in Texas. We lived all over the place. And I can tell you, it's quite a culture shock when you go from, say, Wyoming to South Louisiana, okay? That is a big culture shock. The people in both places are great, but they're different. And they look at you differently when you come. When you go to Louisiana from Wyoming and they ask you what kind of accent you have, and you say, well, I really don't know. I don't think I have an accent, It's really kind of odd. But it can be a big culture shock. So I would suggest if you are thinking about relocating is go to that place, start early and go to that place during different seasons of the year for sure. All right, you want to know what the climate's going to be like in the wintertime. You want to know what it's going to be like in the summertime. And take a look at the storm patterns, especially nowadays. You take a look at the California wildfires or you take a look at the hurricanes in Florida and Alabama and around in there. And you need to go into this with your eyes open as to where is the place with the least amount of disasters and bad things that can happen. All right, so be careful not to fall for any of these, it's too good to be true retirement fraud schemes. There's a lot of them out there right now, and I haven't found any substantial shortcuts to retirement planning. I'm going to be real honest with you. Retirement planning is hard. And, getting some professional advice, I'm not a professional advisor, might be a thing you might want to do to get a plan built for you. Because it's awful hard to, build an Excel spreadsheet that's going to be accurate and give you any kind of a Monte Carlo simulation or anything like that with the probability you'll have. Like if you go ahead and spend $500 or $1,000 getting a plan built just for you. So in 2022, The FTC reported 2.4 million people who were scammed out of money with almost $9 billion in losses. So those are pretty big numbers that you really need to pay attention to. So be really careful not to fall into any of these high pressure sales situations. And especially if they're asking for personal information, if they're asking you for an address, credit card numbers to hold deposits, things like that, and they're pressuring you, it's got to be done right now. I would say don't do it, because those are probably just scams, and some of these scams are really big. They could be like, trying to sell you beachfront property in Arizona. You never know. So go into it with your eyes open, because once they get you on the phone or once they get you on the internet and they get you looking at those videos, right? You ever been on one of those videos where they just keep going and going and going, and they just wear you down to the point where you're like, could you just get to the point where you tell me how much it is and how I can get it? I tend to fall for those once in a while. I've gotten better at clicking off of them now. But if there's not a website that you can go to, that you can do some real research, get some real reviews, and not have to look at, an hour-long video, that might be something worth looking into. But anyway, be careful of the scams in retirement. Like I say, I haven't found any shortcuts. So if you would, go down in the comments section, leave me a comment, and let me know of any scams that you know of, and share it with the community so nobody falls into these traps. Now, this next one isn't really part of retirement planning. It kind of is, but you can plan to work too long. So if you build your retirement plan and you say, you know what, I'm going to build it, so I'm working until I'm 70 years old, I enjoy my job, I enjoy what I do, and I just want to be really secure with my finances. You know what? There's nothing really wrong with that, except that 55% of Americans are not getting to work as long as they want to when they're planning on working past 65. That's right. Things happen. You have health conditions that come up to where you can't physically go to work anymore. Maybe you can't physically do that job anymore. Or maybe the company you work for, you're 60 years old and the company you work for downsizes and your job goes away. Well, it's pretty hard 60 years old to get an income back that pays you as much as what you built your career doing. So I'm not a professional, I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but I think personally that you should go ahead and build your retirement plan to retire earlier than what you might think you want to. Personally, I think, at 62 or 65, 65 at the latest, you should plan to retire, or that's what your plan should be built around. That way, if something happens at 62 or 59, that you have a fighting chance financially to make your plan still work. And if you end up working until you're 70, you have more money. So, that's pretty simple math. It's always going to make sense to work one more year when you're getting ready to retire, or to work 5 more years. It's always going to make financial sense. But like I say, you don't know how your health is going to go. You don't know how the company and the economy are going to go. And I would say be prepared as much as you can, and don't plan to work into your 70s and 80s, because that could be a big financial mistake for you. Anyway, I hope this video's helped you out some, and if it has, reach down, hit that like button, and watch this video next.